Today is splash day.
What do we think the odds are that we just sink? You've come to watch us sink. Top 10 videos recorded moments before disaster.
Hello again and welcome back. Join us for probably the worst moment of our lives on board so far. Every sailor's worst nightmare. Today is splash day. We got up really early. I'm feeling really nervous. But they've said we're not going until about midday. So we've just done final bits, got out the mooring lines, got out the fenders. Eek! I'm so nervous. There's just one, we replaced the fitting, the stopcock on one of the through holes, and so that's just the one I'm nervous about, that's going to leak or something. But it's all open, we can see straight away. I'm going to make Adam go in and check, so I'm going to be too scared. Oh God. I'm so nervous, so silly, but it's been such a long time and it's really windy out there too, so hopefully the wind doesn't pick up too much because then they might not put us back in. But oh, it's been such a long slog, but we're finally there. I've had a lot of bad luck recently. I got struck by lightning. Tiny cat threw herself off the boat all the way up while it's on the stands. I thought she was going to die. Luckily she's fine. Maybe she's got brain damage, I don't know. She seems fine, except for the fact she won't eat anything, except for jelly. We cooked, I got struck by lightning and then we cooked the tablet. I say we, it was me really, but I left it in the oven and Adam put the oven on. Then what happened? Oh, then Tiny Cat got under Adam's feet, like she always does, but this time she got really hurt and was limping, so that was horrible. We thought something really bad had happened to her, but actually she's fine. And then I smashed the GoPro, Adam's new GoPro. So it's going really well for us at the moment. All of that on top of just being, I can't tell you how exhausted I am. Been getting up at 7, working all the way through till 9 or 10 at night, just slogging away. Adam's been working on his laptop and I've been working on the boat, and it's just been too much, to be honest. I'm not saying that I haven't enjoyed some bits of it, but also, in reflection, it's not really something I love. The minutes seemed like hours as we waited to finally be put back into the water. I don't think that clip portrayed just how hard our time in the boatyard really was. I like to think I'm pretty good at getting stuck into DIY projects and usually enjoy this kind of thing. But in hindsight, we both pushed it way too hard considering everything else that was going on. Adam took on extra work with a constant threat that the new company wouldn't make it through the lockdown, and I put a lot of pressure on myself to get some pretty ambitious projects completed. On top of this, we were both so worried about our family and friends back home. It put a huge strain on our mental health and our relationship. For any new liveaboards out there, our advice is to give yourself regular breaks and don't underestimate how draining living in a dusty, dirty boatyard with no washing or toilet facilities can really be. If you have the option to move off the boat for a period of time, then don't hesitate to take it. It isn't giving in, it's looking after yourself.
I actually never thought this day would come.
I'm so nervous, I don't know what to do with all the nerves.
Hey, isn't that one of those chunks of fiberglass just falling out? What do we think the odds are that we just sink?
Pretty high at this point.
Emily just can't wait to do some more anti-fouling. I said, Emily, it's done, but she's just walking around with this bucket and can of paint. Just, you've got to accept when it's over, Emily. 10 videos recorded moments before disaster.
I'm really nervous. Oh my goodness. Really hoping it just works. We deserve it.
It would be really nice to get a break now, but you've seen what 2020 does to people. So I'm not holding out much hope. So this tiny cat's alright, I don't care. You've come to watch us sink. You've come to watch us sink. It's nice of you. You can hold the camera while we bail.
I don't think so.
Do you want me to tie you off, or are you good?
Yeah, maybe. Oh, fine. At some point.
You've come to cheer us off, haven't you? You see Marley's got a carry handle, you can just pick him up. I love this.
I would be up waiting for you if you had to leave. I would wait a lifetime if you were at sea. I just wanna say that I feel that our love is real. Maybe we should hurry up and seal the deal. Oh, oh, I just wanna love you right. Oh, oh, love you till the end of time. I just wanna hold you for
So we thought this next bit of footage would take some explaining.
Something happened when we put the boat back in the water at Basimocopolis in Calada, and it all happened very quickly and we didn't have much time to film, so we've got a little bit of footage, but it's now a year later, we're in the South Dodecanese, and we thought we'd do a little recap about all of this. But we're going to explain what went down, what we did wrong, and what we might do better next time.
So when the boat got put back in the water, the first thing Adam did, because I was too scared, was to go and check everything, check that nothing was leaking, none of the changes that we'd made to the boat over the winter had meant the water could get in. So checked all the engine, hoses, everything, checked all the through holes. Adam came up with a big thumbs up, everything was looking good, we were free to go. So we happily motored away out into the lovely calm bay and dropped the anchor. Sort of breathed a sigh of relief really, because we were like, we're finally, we switched the engine off and we were like, this is it, we're finally out of the boatyard, finally free to relax. And we're just about to high five and then we realised the bilge pump was not turning off.
Yeah.
So we went into panic mode. I ran downstairs and water came up through the floorboards as I stood on them. Which is not
never a
what
good
you
look.
Want. So
New water feature on your boat.
It was honestly a really awful moment. I laugh about it now because we know it all turned out fine, but I can't describe the feeling you get when you see water coming in through the floorboards of your boat.
Yeah.
It was like all of my worst nightmares happening, and it was horrific. You get a real shot of adrenaline, and I think that's probably what helps, but at the time it's the most sickening feeling. So I called up to Adam, I was like, Adam, the boat's sinking, like we have
Dead
to...
calm though, absolutely calm. She was just like, we've got a situation, the boat's sinking. I was like, yeah, good one. She was like, no, come down here, the boat's sinking.
You know,
So yeah, I told you we were going to sink. These are our lovely friends from Akka who've come to help us bail. And
can you believe it? I can't actually, you couldn't write this.
we are actually sinking.
I don't think it is going down. It's just staying.
I think it should be, because I can reach the depth sounder now and I couldn't before.
Is it the depth?
So I went down and looked, and lo and behold, the floorboards are up and like floating around, water's over the floor, Emily's up to it in her ankles.
It was horrible.
But you stayed amazingly calm, you were absolutely brilliant. So
I did the only thing that I could. The bilge pump obviously wasn't keeping up with it, so I just started bailing. I just started chucking water out, and left Adam to do the scary job of trying to find where the leak actually was.
Well, so obviously the bilge pump wasn't keeping up with the rate the water was coming in. So the first thing I did, we have a spare bilge pump on board. I think we have about 3. So I grabbed one and just like MacGyvered a cigarette socket connection onto it so I could plug that in and just start pumping more water out. And then Emily was furiously bailing, and you know, I set about trying to find the source of the problem.
Adam put together a bilge pump, I was bailing, and the water was kind of mostly, I mean, it might have been rising a little bit, but it was under control, or it felt under control. So I called our friends in the anchorage and said, come quick, we need help.
Yeah.
Just wanted the moral support more than anything. I wasn't really sure what I was expecting them to do, but
She rang them and said, we're sinking, and they said, good one, do you think we were born yesterday? And she was like, why do people keep saying this? We're actually sinking. So they got in the dinghy and
they came straight over.
And they brought with them a big manual pump that was amazing.
It was so good.
Absolutely brilliant.
It was just like a hand pump, but it was so easy to use and so quick. It just filled a bucket in no time.
Yeah.
It was amazing. So I would highly recommend that if you don't have one of them on board, they're like 20 quid, or it's so cheap, and they literally saved us. Akka actually gifted it to us.
Yeah, they were like, we think you need this more than we do. So
It was so lovely of them.
God for friends.
That's it, guys, you're doing a great job. Don't want to blow my own trumpet, but I feel like I'm supervising this situation pretty well.
Adam.
You got it?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's a good pump.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
very good.
It's fast.
It's really good.
Faster than me.
Yes.
You're going too fast. You're going too fast for the pump. Oh my goodness, I can see it dropping.
Those guys formed like a bucket chain and were pumping out and dumping down the sink and dumping over the side, which gave us a little bit of breathing room then to find the source of the leak. So I went forward and I went all the way from bow to stern looking for the leak, checking all the skin fittings, all the hoses, everywhere that it could rationally be coming from. And I couldn't find anything. So I went forward again and started the same process, but looking in every cupboard, like pulling things out, looking for just any source. And eventually found under the sofa, we have like a storage cupboard with a saltwater washdown pump in it. So if you catch a big fish or something, you can pump seawater up and clean it, you know, like a deck shower, but saltwater. And it had just completely blown off the hose. So we just had a spare hose just lashing around in there, spraying saltwater.
Yes.
Thank you.
And that's what it was. That hose just blew off the pump. We keep little cork bungs next to every through hole, so I was able to just grab one of those and pop it in. As soon as I knew where it was, we were fine. But you know, up until that point, we had rising water. We couldn't find the source. Like, total nightmare, absolute nightmare.
It was really scary. When we couldn't find where it was coming from, that was the scariest part, I think, because what can you do if you can't see where it's actually coming in?
Yeah.
So I think, obviously, we managed to get the water level down. We managed to clear the bilges of the water, and we sort of had a bit of a... Well, we had a beer.
Yeah, we cracked a beer. It was a lovely
I probably had a bit of a cry. I can't really remember.
It was good. We had a nice time.
I think what people don't tell you when something like that happens is the anxiety you get after. For a good few months after it happened, I was terrified of going below. Every time we went out for a sail, I was convinced that I'd go down and find rising water coming up through the floorboards.
Yeah.
I used to make Adam go down and check if I hadn't been down for an hour.
Yeah, and I'd go down and be like, whoa, it's terrible down here. Emily's like deploying the life raft. And,
so, yeah, that was a pretty horrible consequence of it. It's one of those things where you do everything you can to make sure it won't happen to you, and then you have to just pretend it won't, because if you worry about all the things that could go wrong on a boat, you'd just never sleep or eat or anything. You'd just be constantly looking in every corner of the boat for something horrible to happen. So, but obviously once it does happen, you know it can happen, and then that little security blanket in your head that says, don't worry, it won't happen to you, is completely gone.
But in that spirit, I think we wanted to talk a little bit about what actually happened, anything we could have done to prevent it, the steps that we went through in order to combat it, and the options we had available, because we didn't actually use all of them. We had a bit more of a disaster plan we could have got into if we needed to, just in the hope that it helps, you know, you if you ever find yourself in the same situation, or helps you to avoid it.
I think basically we're making ourselves really vulnerable putting this out there, because I'm sure there's a million things we did wrong, and that's fine. But comment away, you know, say what we should have done better. I think when you're in that situation yourself, you can watch a million videos of other people making mistakes when they're sailing, and as soon as you're in that situation, it's so individual.
It's not as simple.
And you do what you can do in that moment. So I think it's really important, you know, say what we should have done better, because other people will learn from it. I know that when I've read all the comments on other people's sailing disasters, I've definitely learned a lot about what we should be doing. But yeah, it is very different when you're in that situation yourself. It's very, very different.
So let's look at our options if we hadn't been able to stem the flow. So we've mentioned we'd just come from a lift-in. So we knew that we could go back to the crane and beg them to pick us out again. We knew that was an option.
An expensive option.
Would have cost us about €1,000. So we knew we had that option, but we didn't want to rush there straight away. Another thing we actually knew about the bay, because we'd been there for 6 months, was that it was sand and mud everywhere, and it shelved very gently. And we knew of our own boat that she's designed to be beached. She's got a swing keel, you know, you can beach her, she's completely happy with it. The previous owners did it on occasion. So we knew if things got really bad, we could put the motor on and we could actually run her up the beach gently to stop her from sinking. We were only in 6 meters of water or something when we were sinking, so to get to 1.5 wouldn't have been too much drama. Another trick that the guy we learnt to sail with taught us is, of course, most engines cool from seawater, so they pump seawater at great rates through the engine to cool it. So if you're ever in a real bind, you can take the saltwater intake off the skin fitting, shut the through hole of course, and you can take that hose and put it in the water that's inside your boat, start the engine, and your engine will pump that water out for you. It'll act like a 30 horsepower pump that will keep going for as long as your fuel tanks will, which on hot chocolate is 370 litres or something. So we could have gone for days like that, literally. You know, so those were kind of our 3 options. Get hauled out again, try using the engine as a bilge pump, which is apparently very effective, but we've never had to do it in anger, or even ground the boat in a real disaster scenario.
I think all these things were things that we talked about as we were trying to stem the flow of the water. So our first thought was, what are we going to do if the boat actually does sink quicker than we can do any of these things? Because obviously we needed to be safe first and foremost, or more importantly, Tiny Cat needed to be safe. So we
had a life raft and a dinghy. We could have just been floating around in the anchorage in like 6 meters of water in our life raft looking like total idiots, but everyone would have been safe, which is why our mind went to saving the boat more than saving souls aboard.
So that was quite a lucky consequence, because I think had we been at sea, that would have been a much more pressing issue.
Yeah, definitely. There's a couple of things that I might do differently in future. One of the things that we realised is it's not much fun trying to terminate a new bilge pump under pressure with water around your ankles. We've always got 3 on board, but I just leave them in the box in shrink wrap. So 1, I would unwrap them and have them ready to go at a moment's notice. But 2, I think I would actually tag a plug onto them so that if you need to, you can plug them in and run them off the cigarette sockets, 12-volt sockets around the boat in an emergency, because it wasn't fun trying to solder it against the rising tide.
And I would say that was a big learning curve for me, because obviously I don't have the same skills when it comes to electrics as Adam. if I'd been on the boat on my own, I'm not sure I would have had the skills that I needed at that point to be able to rig up another bilge pump just on the fly like that. So for me, that was a bit of an eye-opener that there are things that, basic things that, you can't know everything, but basic things that I need to brush up on to feel like I'm capable of doing it on my own as well. We're really good about handling the boat on our own and making sure we can both do both jobs there, but the technical things, maybe that's something that I definitely want to brush up on.
Another thing I would do differently, and this will sound really obvious to you watching at home, but when I was running around checking the possible source of the water, I didn't think to close each seacock as I went, and it would have been really simple, but even though I'd eliminated it, I was sure the water wasn't coming in there. I should have closed each one as I went, because the water that was escaping was on the other side of a bulkhead to the through hull. So I just examined the through hull when it's clearly intact and didn't close it. And if I'd have just closed the through hull for the saltwater washdown, that would have actually stopped our problem on the spot. As it happens, we've actually added an extra stopcock now just for the saltwater washdown, because ours is it shares the same stopcock as the head. So if you had to turn it off, you wouldn't have a toilet. But in the future, if I was rushing around looking for water, I would be closing those as I went, everything but the engine ones, of course.
Another thing was that manual bilge pump that Akka bought was just incredible.
Absolutely amazing.
And it sounds really silly, but a bucket. I never really thought about the value of a bucket before.
Yeah, buckets are invaluable.
So having several buckets so that we could obviously fill one bucket while another person was emptying the other bucket was so useful. So just having a couple of decent buckets on board really did help us in that situation.
Also, make sure you have friends in the same anchorage. If you plan ahead when you're going to sink, and make sure you have really useful friends, check their batteries charged on their phone, then you can call them in a pinch. Sailing Yacht Akka are actually available for hire if anybody wants them to just follow them around and get them out of pickles. So yeah, we owe those guys like 50 pints next time we see them. But yeah, amazing job. We'd love to hear if there's anything we missed. I'm sure there was. I'm sure, watching this back, you'll probably have a lot of ideas of how we could have done things differently. So be nice. We are only novice sailors, but we would welcome your input and knowledge, as to how to avoid situations like this and deal with them under pressure.
Soon afterwards, I wrote up my sort of thoughts and feelings on the incident. So if you want to check that out, it's on the To Get Lost blog, titled something fitting like "The Boat is Sinking," I think. So maybe it's an interesting read for some people.
Yeah. Enjoy. So we got off remarkably lightly in our little sinking incident. We have found a couple of things that have gone. Namely, the depth sounder started behaving quite strangely afterwards. We weren't totally sure if it had always, or if the problem had existed before we took on water. But yeah, here's the proof. We just went in this lovely cupboard, one of my favourite places on the boat. This cupboard was completely full of water. So I've just been cleaning it out, sorting it all out so that we can resume life as normal, which includes reinstalling the freshwater pump. But yeah, that's the depth sounder, that's the transducer just there. And this box was very cleverly tacked onto the floor, below the cabin sole, right onto the hull. So when we took on water, this was one of the first things that would be affected. So not only is it not in a waterproof box, it's in a box that can take on water. It's in the lowest part of the bilge. So say you'd just say you'd hit a reef or something and you were trying to navigate your way to safety, that one of the first things you'd lose would be your depth. How important that would be would really vary depending on the scenario. But one of the things we've talked about, because you can ground this boat, we talked about in a real disaster scenario, we might try and ground the boat to save as much of it as possible. And knowing how deep it is would be quite useful in that scenario. So when we this should be simple enough to fix, just a bit of soldering really. And then I'll probably install it high up somewhere to mitigate that problem. it's not like we don't have tons of flex as well. Look at this. They've bundled up about maybe a good metre of this Cat 6 or whatever it is, Cat 5e. They've tied it all up really nice and neatly and then stuck this to the floor, presumably thinking they would never take on water. But, you know, there's a whole bunch of reasons that could happen. Over the winter, we had... I'm not really sure what happened, to be quite honest with you, but our bilge pump, the float switch was decommissioned. I don't know whether we moved it at the last minute and forgot to put it back, or whether it moved during the time we were on the hard. I haven't got to the bottom of that one. But yeah, there was quite a lot of water in the bilge just from rain, just running down the mast and making its way in. So, you know, without even running aground or taking on water through some other source, that could easily have been ruined. So yeah, I'm glad I've had a look at that, because that would not have lived much longer. And yeah, we'll do a bit of electronic surgery and try and bring it back to life. Well, I always get the worst jobs. So after dragging anchor once last season, admittedly under quite extreme circumstances, it taught us a good lesson about the importance of a good anchor. And the anchors on Hot Chocolate are, I think, 15 kilo deltas, which are big enough according to the manufacturer. But not as big as this bad boy, that's for sure. So we've doubled the size of our anchor to a 32 kilo delta, which is I think 3 size categories up, according to the manufacturer. But we sure as hell won't be dragging anchor now. But we don't even need to dig the damn thing in. It's probably heavy enough by itself just to keep us on the seabed. But Jesus Christ, it's heavy. So yeah, I'll get this bad boy installed, and no more dragging anchor for us. I mean, 32 kilos is fairly heavy, but it's all sharp angles. Maybe don't use that bit. The next question is, how do we get it in the dinghy?
We spent a lot of time researching anchors and decided to go for another Delta. We've explained our reasons in detail in our Delta anchor review on the website. I'll leave a link in the description for anyone interested. Anchors are a much debated subject, so feel free to leave your anchor opinions in the comments so we can all have a good argument on the matter.
Top 10 videos taken moments before disaster.
Oh, I'm really worried about this. I wish we had a little carry case for her or something.
Bit of context, the cat has been insufferable all day, so we've decided she's bored and we're going to take her to shore.
She won't.
But we're about to start the dinghy engine, which is like the din of 1,000 battles. So she's probably going to go mental. You go straight in the water. So I've got my shirt off already in preparation for a swim.
Like, just tuck her in this bag.
Emily thinks if we put her in the bag, she'll feel safe.
I think she might be like a little cot for her. I'm just gonna try. What's in here, honey?
Just make sure you've got a way to try and hold on to her as well.
What do you think? She hides when she hears a loud noise, so now she knows she can run in here.
Alright, guess we'll start the engine.
Stay in a safe place, it's about to start the loud noise.
Hey, I wish you could see yourself just sitting there on my chair. I'm staring at you, you don't even notice.
thought nobody would want the cat in the shop, but apparently it's fine. So, grocery shopping with your cat? Oh, you're getting a bit agitated.
She's taking the cat shopping.
The old lady said, "Did you get that here?" The cat. I know it was the other lady, the one who wanted the basket.
Yeah, we got her here.
Shopping. She's helped us pick the cheese. She meowed in the general direction of the counter, and we bought cheese. She's got sardines. She's nearly got sardines with chili in them, which I don't think she would have liked very much. Thank you. Bye, guys.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for everything. See you next year.
Next year.
Yeah, maybe, or the end of this year. So, cool. Well, what did we think about that? Didn't like it very much, did we? You just think about that next time when you suck the jelly off your food and don't eat it. That's what we have to do every time you need more cat food. Yeah, I'm talking to you. That's what we have to do.
Oh, we didn't enjoy our trip into town, did we?
That's what we have to do every time you need a new can.
I thought you would like it. She can smell the sardines.
Yeah, she's got sardines. So it all will soon be forgotten. I think that's actually it. I think we are actually greenlit to leave Killarda tomorrow, which is really something because we've been here for 258 days or something, it said on the invoice, plus some hanging around in the anchorage either end. So yeah, Killarda, it's been emotional. Great yard for anyone looking for a good yard in the Peloponnese. The Bazimakopolis. It's they're good. They're not the cheapest, but they're good. Very nice cradles, is what everyone says. Yeah, really lovely. Family run. Been in the family for 90 years, 100 years, something like that. And they were really good. So, yeah, quick little run to the shops. Get some distilled water for the engine. Couple of bits and pieces, and maybe we'll go for a beer with our friends, the Danish guys on SY Akka. So yeah, in theory we get to leave tomorrow. I'm sure loads of things will go wrong, as they always do, but yeah, in theory we get to leave tomorrow, head to Athens to go and pick some friends up to crew with us for 3 weeks, and then hopefully do some island hopping, see some of the islands, see some of Greece, not just the inside of a boatyard. So yeah, wish us luck. We'll probably go horribly like everything else in 2020, but at least we'll be moving. It'll be horrible in motion. There's definitely something to be said for that. All right, ciao.
Thanks for watching. For a detailed write-up of our nearly sinking mishap, head over to togetlost.com. There's a link in the description. If you enjoyed this episode, then please do like and subscribe, and if you want to know more about us, then there's loads of information on our To Get Lost website. Thank you as always to our patrons for supporting our filming, editing and writing. See you next week for our first sail of the season.